I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Sam.
And this is Progression in Progress. All right, welcome back to another episode of Progression in Progress. How are we doing today, Sam?
Doing great. How about you?
Doing awesome. Super excited for today's episode. This week, we are sitting down with my friend, Zach Barber. We met freshman year of college, and I think he has a really unique perspective on life and the way he's handled certain challenges in his life. And I don't want to spoil all that here in the intro, but I just wanted to, as always, we do these little intros beforehand just to introduce our guests. I'm super excited to sit down with Zach Barber. Super excited to hear his perspective, and I hope you guys enjoy the interview as well.
Let's go.
All right, let's do it. All right, Zach, how you doing?
Real good. How about you, man?
Good. Thanks for coming into the podcast today.
No problem.
Awesome. Well, so I've gotten to know you a little bit over this last year and a half, but Sam doesn't know you and the audience doesn't know you. So why don't you give everyone just a little introduction? Who are you?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Zach Barber. I'm 23. I'm currently going to BYU, but I am from Dallas, Texas. I like the Cowboys. Unfortunately, they don't like me. And I'm a chill guy. I got married to a hot girl last year. And yeah, life's good. I have a puppy. But I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. What are you studying at BYU? Last time we talked, I totally forget what you were studying.
Yeah, no worries. I'm looking to study in experience design management.
Nice.
Yeah.
Dude, Sam, I tell you all the time, that's the major for you. If you were to do school again, I'm telling you, experience design is for you. So that's pretty sweet. We'll have to talk more about that later. But the reason, I brought you, so I guess, well, first, before we get into everything, remind me of where we met. I think we met at BYU at some like seminar or something like that.
Yeah.
Or like intro for like an entrepreneurship competition or project or something. Tell me if you remember, because I the details are fuzzy for me.
I totally remember. We it was like an entrepreneurship seminar. We were feeling really, really bold, so we went to that, and I just remember seeing you were sitting there. I was like, this guy looks cool. So I sat next to you and we listened to that thing. I think it was about like we all had to come up with a business idea, and it was like a brainstorming sesh, and we were like, yo, let's collab. And that's kind of how it went.
I think we ended up having similar ideas, something to do with like parking, but then we ended up right at the last second kind of like taking different variations on the project and submitting it. I remember that was pretty fun. I remember that. And best of all, I got to meet you and now we're here. So that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, dude, that was really cool.
So I think one of the reasons why we were able to connect so much, because we just worked on that project together just a little bit. I don't even feel like we put that much time into it for that project, but I feel like we were able to connect so much is because we both have had some physical challenges in our life. And I really appreciated your perspective because I felt like it was the opposite perspective of mine. So when it comes to my physical challenges, my disability, to be honest, I don't talk about it a ton. With my friends, I don't talk about it a ton. At school, I never talked about it a ton. Here on the podcast, to be honest, is probably where I talk about it the most. But even then, I feel like I don't even go into detail very much. That's just, that's just for some reason, that's just how I've handled things. But I really was super interested with your perspective, because even though our physical challenges are extremely different, one, we were able to connect on that, but two, you have like the exact opposite approach, which is why I wanted to bring you in here today to kind of get that perspective.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, I wasn't always super open about my disease or whatever you want to call it. So I guess first off, I have a super cool disease. It's called Eosinophilic esophagitis. Super fun to say. But essentially, my white blood cells mistake food as a germ, and white blood cells fight off germs. So basically, whenever I eat food, my body attacks itself. It's pretty silly. But yeah, so I was able to eat my whole life, and then this happened when I was 12. But really, when I wasn't always super open. So like I had this disease thing happen, and from age 12 to 15, like my diet got really restricted because I just kept throwing up after eating food. So the symptoms, you throw up, you get really bad abdominal pain, you don't absorb nutrients. So I was just becoming a sick kid. And when I was 15, my doctor was like, hey, we got to take you off all food because you're so inflamed, and we're going to put you on a medical formula, which is just like baby food, but who knows? Well, I was going to see if it would help. And that at that point, he was like, okay, this is all you can drink. And all my friends, like, they had no idea. So like, I was like deathly afraid to tell people, because like that is so weird to just be on like baby food. Like it took me like it almost I was forced to come out to my friends, like coming out of the closet. And essentially like I had no choice. And because I had to have nutrients. I tried to like fight it, and I, like at lunch I'd bring like Smarties, and I have like 20 calories because I could tolerate like sugar, and I'd like put my lunch bag under the table and like trying to be chill, like nothing's happening. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was forced to open up to my friends, and yeah, they were really accepting, and it was really like being able to be my full self was really like liberating for me. And I think for a lot of people who are afraid of that, it's like the fear of being judged or fear of people like not accepting you. But since I was forced to like put myself out there, like I was accepted, and I was like, hey, this is cool. I like this feeling. I like being just me. So that was kind of like a little bit of a long story, but that's why I am the way I am.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. That's really cool. Now, I mean, I'll have to probably do a follow up or something, talking about my experience, but I can see so many. I think that's just why I admired your perspective so much, because, even though the things we deal with are very different, the way you've handled things, I really take inspiration from and admire. And I think that's a really cool story. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah,
And
no
I
problem.
guess I should have done this right at the very beginning, but I want you to tell the story of this hat. I wear this hat so often. I've gotten so many compliments on this hat. I don't know if you've been following the Instagram page we have for this podcast, but like half the pictures we have on the podcast, or I mean, on that Instagram, and all the little edits I do, I'm wearing this hat. So
Dude, I gotta follow that.
yeah, I want to at Talk Progression for everyone who hasn't followed it yet, but I want you to tell the story of this hat.
Yeah. Okay. So we had met, actually, and it was that semester in 2018. So I was going to school for a little bit, and during that time, we were collaborating on our parking idea. And yep. I've had ups and downs with my health, and like maybe 2 or 3 weeks after we were collaborating, my health was so bad I had to drop out of BYU. And now I can say I'm a dropout, which is cool. Feels so cool. But yeah, so basically I was just like super bummed out. Like, this sucks. Like, I guess with like when you have diseases, I don't know if it's the same for you, Jonathan, there's ups and downs, and you kind of have these lows where like, man, this really sucks. But then you kind of come up and you don't think about it for a while. So I was at a low point. Yeah, I just didn't really know what to do, and I decided to post a video, because the reason I dropped out is I was taking part in a clinical trial, and my body wasn't reacting super well to it, and I had to stay in that clinical trial, so I couldn't get out of it, so I had to drop out. But I decided to post a video about my experience with the clinical trial on Facebook, and a lady reached out to me, and she happened to be part of a nonprofit called Cured, which their goal is to find a cure for EOE, or eosinophilic esophagitis. So she messaged me and she's like, hey, let's make these videos. I saw the video that you posted is really inspirational. I liked how you talk. We started collaborating. I made videos for her. And over like the next couple of months, I was like, hey, what if I like made hats to raise money for Cured, which is the nonprofit. So I was like, hey, I can only eat rice. So over the years where I was just on formula, I was able to eat rice and then like pears but they had to be canned. It was weird, or else I'd react to a raw pear.
Really?
Yeah. So I was like, hey, I'm going to make hats. It's going to be a symbolic. And I was like, I can eat rice and pears. So pear was an easy symbol. I made a rice cake hat, which is a little bit harder. And then on the back of the hat, I wrote like cure for EOE in pink, which is like, no one knows this, but it's like the national, it's the national like color of EOE. So fun fact there. But yeah, I was like, hey, let's make these hats. And I donate all the profits just to Cure. It's just kind of something to be, hey, here's a hat. It's kind of cool. So.
Well, dude, once again, another great story. And two, I mean, this hat is literally, I've worn this hat more than any other hat. So
it looks good.
Such big shout outs to you, Zach.
Thanks,
big shout outs. So some guy, when I was down in San Diego, some guy was like, yo, are they still selling those hats? I got to get one. So people love the hat. Yeah. Great design. Are you still selling them right now? Are you still doing the fundraising?
Okay. Yeah, they're just like made to order. If you hit me up, I'll sell one.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, at the end, we'll make sure to get the info out there.
Heck yeah.
Definitely. So you've kind of talked about all these different challenges and different, fundraising efforts and, all that kind of stuff. And, a lot of people, I kind of feel like in your kind of situation may, I don't know how to say, maybe just kind of like give up or just kind of feel sorry for themselves over something like that. But it seems like you've really taken it and then almost made it like a positive thing. So how did you get this confidence from all that when others may just kind of, give up?
Dude, that's a great question. I think it has to do with the amount of time I've had this disease. So, Jonathan, how long have you had your disability?
Since I was born.
Okay. So I guess maybe mine's just obviously we have very different issues. But like I was normal for part of my life. And then when I was 12, this happened, but I've had this for 11 years now. So it has to do with the time for me, because for the first 3 or 4 years, I was a jerk. Like I was just like so pissed off at the world as much as a little teenager can be. Like for Thanksgiving one year, I like made my dad eat formula just because I was like, screw this. I don't want you guys to eat. So it took time.
I kind of want to ask, how does that taste?
They have different flavors. It doesn't help. They have grape, which is the worst. And they have vanilla, and that one's not terrible. Just imagine like an overly sweet vanilla protein shake. That kind of makes you like shudder a little bit. But then they have one that's like orange, pineapple, banana, but it's like, it tastes like a rotten orange juice in my opinion. So, well, I might be a little biased just cause I drank it for so long. It was just so gross, but it's not great. It's not the worst, but it's not good. So
no, I can't. That's dang.
Yeah, dude, I got you.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. I feel like we kind of interrupted your train of thought there. You're talking about Thanksgiving dinner with your dad and formula and all that.
No, it was an essential interruption. So, so it took time, but it was around the time I got taken off all food and put on formula that I kind of realized being negative didn't really help my case because there was no cure. So being negative or positive, like none of them helped, but one of them made me in a better mood. And like people would enjoy being around me more. So I think that, and then also just being in a religion that is focused on a Jesus Christ where you can seek an actual tangible hope and strength through prayer. During the age 15 to where I am now, that's what's given me the most strength and hope to get back up and keep going. So I know everyone's got maybe they believe or they don't believe in something, that's totally fine. But for me, it's been a huge help to rely on something greater than myself. That's kind of how I stay more positive than negative today.
That's awesome. Well, one of the biggest things we talk about here on the podcast is, you're dealt a deck of cards. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to listen to any of the episodes, but we talk about that all the time. You're dealt a deck of cards, and you can, you get to choose what you do with that deck of cards. And I feel like I'm so glad that we brought you here into the podcast to share your story, because I feel like you're the perfect example of that. You were dealt a deck of cards. It wasn't a winning suit, but it just wasn't a winning suit, but you have made the most of it and turned it into a winning suit. That's maybe where the card analogy falls apart, because once you're playing cards, you dealt your deck of cards, there's not much you can do, unless you're playing Uno and you do a little reverse-a-roo or something like that. Right. But, in real life, I do feel like, that's where once you bring it into real life, that analogy of the deck of cards falls apart just a tiny bit, because you are able to make so many changes. You are able to make the most of it. You're able to change the game. You're able to change your 3, your 2, your 5 into a winning hand, and I think that's exactly what you've done. So that's an inspiration to me. And I hope, the people listening to this podcast can take something out of it, because I think there's so much power in that message, so much power in, one, just the message, but 2, actually seeing someone who's done it. I don't know if I think you speak Spanish, Zach.
Yeah.
El perro que ladra no muerde. Like I probably butchered that, but it's like, it's a all dog. I don't know the phrase in English very well, but it's like the all bark, no bite, I think is what it is. Right. And this is not the case here. You've bitten, I guess. I don't know. That doesn't translate when you turn it.
Oh, yeah, I did.
But you've made the most of this, So I think that's exactly why we wanted to bring you here to the podcast. And I'm so glad you're able to share that story with everyone.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate you guys having me on, for real. I can seriously say, like, life's not perfect still. I definitely give off a positive vibe, and that's like what I strive for. But like for those listening as well, like if you're like, all right, my circumstance sucks, how the heck? Like, I don't want this to make you feel bad. Like, oh man, I'm a negative person, I can't get out of this. This makes me feel like crap. Like, just know, like I to be positive, you kind of have to be negative. You have to release those stresses. Just want you to know, like, I'm human too. I do think wherever you're at, you can get to this point where you are happier, more positive. Just keep trying. Don't give up.
Dude, that's awesome. Well, before we end, we always ask if the person we're interviewing has any closing advice that they want to share with us or share with the audience.
Well, I think I just said it.
Perfect. Well, you dominated it. You threw down the law. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then before we end, one more thing. So where can if someone wants to get one of these hats or just check you out and all the, all the things you post and all the things, kind of little updates and, what you're up to, or where they can get these hats, where should they go?
Okay. They should DM me on Instagram.
Okay, perfect.
And I forgot my tag, so I'm looking it up real quick.
Awesome. And we'll have a link to it in the bio of this episode,
really?
and we'll link to it. We'll link to it on Instagram too, but it's still good for them to hear it. So what's the tag?
Yeah. So it's pretty memorable. So it's all lowercase. Zach, ZACH, eats rice cakes and pears.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, Zach, thank you so much for coming into the podcast. I really enjoyed listening to your story. I'm looking forward for everyone else to hear this story. So thank you so much.
Thanks. I'm excited to hear it.
Awesome. We'll see you around.
Thank you.
Peace out. Thanks.
All right. That was a great interview with Zach. I thought that turned out really well. And I really appreciated what he had to say, and the way he delivered it. I think he made it interesting. And, this is a little bit more personal for me than the other interviews, just because I relate to Zach a little bit. And I think there's a lot of important things that I learned from hearing what he had to say.
Yeah, he's an absolute legend. Truly.
Okay, so to start off, there's one or two things that I wanted to talk about just real quick. Keep this post-interview conversation short. The most important thing that I think Zach said, well, not the most important thing, but the thing that I want to talk about here is one thing that stood out to me. I think you guys can probably decide what you think was most important. But one thing I want to talk about here is he said, being negative doesn't change your case. Being negative doesn't change your plot in life, doesn't change your deck of cards. It doesn't change the situation. Being negative will not change the situation. But then he said, but being positive will put you in a better mood. I'm probably butchering how he said it, but to paraphrase, being positive will put you in a better mood. And I think that perfectly embodies what we try to talk about here on the podcast.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think the analogy that's always been used is, you have a deck of cards, but then any situation you can turn into a better one just with a mindset. I feel like even you can always find the good in any kind of situation, I feel.
I think that's true. And a lot of times when here on the podcast, I guess we kind of talk about things in terms of progression, as in, I guess, a lot of people, and I think we even do this too, but I think it probably means more, but a lot of people will probably interpret progression, as like career progression or, just life progression in general, workout progression, life progression, career progression, money. Some people might even associate it with that. But I think what I love Zach talking about, or the way Zach talked about it, is it was in terms of happiness, your own personal happiness. And it's not, and I think that helps expand our definition of, the deck of cards analogy, expands our definition of making the most out of you can, taking control of what you can. And I think it expands the definition and includes happiness, your own personal happiness, into this whole realm, into this whole universe, into this whole definition that we've created, or not created. Honestly, I don't think we can take ownership of that definition. So I probably shouldn't say that it's ours, but just the way we talk about it here on the podcast, he's kind of expanded our view a little bit and brought happiness into the equation. And I think in terms of actual progression, when it comes to getting things done, taking control of what you can and, accepting the deck of cards you have and then making the most out of it, is a wonderful thing to do and a tremendous thing to do when it comes to, progression, as in getting things done. But Zach has opened it up to happiness as well. And I think it's true. It holds true there too. If you can't change your situation by complaining. You can't change your situation by being negative about it. But he said it so beautifully. He said it so perfectly. But you can choose to be positive, and that will put you in a better mood. So even though the situation didn't change, you're in a better mood because of it, because of that mindset.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I kind of feel like, maybe in the past it's always been kind of weird to talk about like kind of mental things or mindsets and things like that. And it's gotten a lot better recently with a lot of people coming out with like, mental health advocates and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I kind of think that it's also something that you can definitely like work towards, kind of work on, just even kind of like, working on your muscles or something like that, reframing the situations that you're in and find the positive in things and just practice being a more positive person. I think that, that kind of manifests itself in actual positivity and happiness over time.
I think that's so true. I like that you referred to, or you kind of brought in, working your muscles into this. It's similar to that. And I think that's great. A great analogy, because I mean, this isn't scientific, I don't think, but I feel like you can think of the brain as a muscle. The more you work out certain parts of your brain, the more you're going to develop that path, I guess, that neurological path. Right. So if you are always thinking negatively, if you're always looking for the bad, if you're always thinking like that, you're going to see it. It's almost going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Mm-hmm. It's almost going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you just focus on the negative, if you focus on the bad, if you are spending all your time forcing yourself thinking about negative things, that's going to have an effect. Sometimes I feel like I struggle with seeing cause and effect in my personal life. Like, it's very easy to see in other people's life, but in your own life, it applies the same way. And it's like, okay, if I think about all these negative things and spend all my time dwelling on that, of course I'm going to have a negative outlook. Of course I'm going to feel like crap. Of course, all those things, it just makes so much sense, I guess, when you say it out loud. So I think it's not unfair to say that you got to work your brain in a different way. And I think we don't want to be advocating here for like, never be sad, never have any negative emotions, never feel negative, which I guess we're going to talk about in 1 second. I want to transition to that in a second. But one thing that my dad has always said that I loved is he's like, okay, be sad for a day and then move on. And I think each situation will, replace day with however long is appropriate for that situation, I guess. But I think just the mentality there is that, you can be sad, you should be sad, but if you're going to focus on it forever, if you're going to focus on it forever, I don't know if that's a great way to progress.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so just to transition, just to wrap things up here, we want to keep this little end part short so one thing that Zach said that I thought was interesting, and I wanted to ask you about it, Sam, and get your perspective on it, and then maybe I'll give my perspective. So to paraphrase again, he was saying, life isn't perfect. I give off a lot of positive vibes. That's what Zach was saying. He says he gives off a lot of positive vibes, but at the same time, life's not perfect, and sometimes you have to be negative. And then he kind of phrased it in a way that's like, sometimes you have to be negative in order to be positive. So what do you think he meant by that, Sam?
I think for most things, like you have to, I forget where I've heard this before, but it's like you have to feel, sad in order to feel happy. Like if the other one didn't exist, then it wouldn't make the other one, better, more enjoyable to have or experience. I kind of feel like sometimes, you do have to have those other feelings every once in a while. And then, when you're actually feeling those good feelings or have those good times, that they probably mean a lot more. And then also just, I almost feel like it's almost a motivator in a way. Like having those bad feelings kind of motivates you then to, try to live a more positive life and have a positive outlook on things, just so you don't always have to feel that way. Because I think most people would agree it's better to feel happy and positive than not.
Yeah. Well, there's opposites in all things. There's opposites in all things. And I think that's makes sense. When you give your opinion on it, give your context on it, your perspective, that makes a little more sense. There's opposite in all things. The way I kind of viewed it is that, okay, so you gotta release that negative energy somewhere. And I think it's a two-parter situation or analysis or answer where you have to get out that negative energy. And I guess you can run into a lot of problems if you suppress that negative energy forever. That's probably not a good thing. So I guess getting out that negative energy in some way so you can be positive, I think it's maybe what he was going at. Maybe we'll have to do a follow-up and ask Zach more about that and see what he has to say. Maybe we'll get him to explain it more on Instagram, because we're just kind of guessing here and putting our own spin on it. But I guess just to finish up on that, I said it was like kind of a two-part thing, a two-part problem. Is I think, if you have negative energy, you got to get rid of it so you can be positive. But at the same time, I think as you progress, as you move forward, as you learn, as you grow, as you gain more experience, you don't let that negative energy affect you as much. I don't know how I'm trying to say it or what I'm trying to say. Like you learn to take things in stride. You learn to not get so weighed down by things. You learn to spin it into a positive before it's even a negative. I think that's a good way to say it. You're spinning it into a positive before it's even a negative. That is what the long-term goal, at least for me, that would be the long-term goal. And I guess with this type of question, but I think Zach is 100% correct that you do sometimes have to get out that negative energy, and you have to be a little bit negative so you can be positive.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, I think that's all we got to say today. We're trying to keep this short here, so I think we'll wrap up the episode. So thank you so much for listening to another episode of Progression of Progress. You can follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Instagram is where we post most of our content at Talk Progression. There will also be a link in our bio. What else, Sam? What else do they got to do?
Also, just be sure to subscribe on all your favorite podcasting platforms. And also be sure to give us a review, helps us out a lot, and share this episode or any of our episodes with a friend if you think they are awesome and someone that could possibly benefit from them. Exactly. Yeah, we hope to have a discussion here, and things we talk about, we hope people can extract certain bits of what we talk about and apply it to their own lives. So if you feel like someone who could benefit from hearing what we have to say, even if they don't benefit directly, if they benefit indirectly by taking what we say and then bringing it into their own lives, please share it. We would really appreciate that. So once again, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Progression of Progress, and we'll see you next week. New episodes every Monday.